And so today I've been asked to come and talk about dealing with peer pressure. And so the first thing I like to do is just define the key words, and that will help us go through. The first word here is peer, P-E-E-R. And the dictionary, Merriam Dictionary says, Merriam-Webster Dictionary says that when you talk about someone who's your peer, when you say peer pressure, you know, we use a lot of words, and most times we don't even know what it means. It says one that is equal, is of equal standing with another, one that is of equal standing with another. That means they're at par. And the dictionary Cambridge.org says a peer is some person who is the same age or has the same social position, all the same ability as other people in the group. So when we're talking, I'll probably say Korede Fashora and Bisi Ibitayo, they are peers because we're just about the same age. When you're talking status also, children of God, ministers in the church of God. Pressure by Oxford Dictionary says attempt to persuade or coerce some person into doing something. So like you're under pressure to pass your exam. Your parents put you under pressure. They want you to come out with first-class distinction. So they attempt to persuade you, to coerce you, to do everything possible to make this happen. You could also say pressure is the use of persuasion and sometimes intimidation. I decided to put that in red ink so that you have an understanding of how important those two words are. The use of persuasion or intimidation to make someone do something. And I believe in this context of what we're talking about peer pressure, I think this definition would work for me concerning pressure. Now, what does it mean to distinguish here? To distinguish here means to notice or understand the difference between two things, or to make one person or thing different from another. Okay, so to deal with, since we're talking about dealing with peer pressure, Merriam-Webster Dictionary says to do something about a person or a thing that causes a problem or difficult situation, to accept or to try to accept something that is true and cannot be changed. And finally, I added this word. It's not part of the topic I was given, but I added it deliberately because it's going to help us a great deal. Influence. That is the capacity to have an effect on the character, the capacity to have an effect on the character, development or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. So when you talk about influence, that means the capacity of effect on the character development of Bisi, the capacity, the ability of a Korede to have an effect on the character or the behavior of Bisi, such that it transforms this individual in question. Let's look at this. This is my own definition, and this is going to guide what we're talking about here. Peer pressure, and then I put peer or peer influence. Sometimes it's not so much as a pressure. A lot of times it's influence, actually. So peer pressure or peer influence here is the ability of people who are of our age or status to affect or influence our decision. I'm reading it and then I'll explain. To affect our way of life, to affect our choices by coercion, intimidation, or by just observing them, and also our ability to do the same. So peer pressure or peer influence is the ability of Bisi to affect or influence the decisions of a Korede, to affect or influence the way of life or choices of a Korede, either by intimidating her, maybe I have something on her, or I'm stronger than her, I'm a bigger build than her, or there's something I know that she wants from me, by coercion, by trying to sweet talk her into doing this, or by just observing her. Peer pressure or peer influence doesn't necessarily have to be by putting pressure on the person or by exerting pressure on that person, by coercing the person. Sometimes it could just by being busy, observing the way a Korede speaks. And before you know it, Korede has an influence on Bisi. And so just watching this person, I mean, like a lot of you would agree with me, sometimes you're listening to somebody speak, and then the next minute, the mannerisms of this person, the way the person gesticulates, the way the person does his eyes, it now becomes a part of you. This person has had an influence on you. Why? Just because you're observing the person. So this also happens. And then also, when we talk about peer pressure, I'm going to be taking it from the angle that it's not just what somebody does to me. It's also my ability to do the same to them. So this could also be Bisi being a mean person. It could also be Bisi exerting peer pressure on another person. So when you're looking at this, because when I read the word of God, I look at it as a mirror. I'm looking at myself in the context that, okay, this person did this. I was a very, very mean person in the Bible. And then the Holy Spirit is saying, let's flip it. Let's turn it around. It could also be you. So this peer pressure or peer influence we're going to be looking at now is going to be talking about you and I also having the same effect on other people as well. Now, let's just stay here for a while. So I saw this and I've seen it a while and it's just stayed with me and it helps me to explain this topic. It says, after all, it's not mine, it's a quote, but it doesn't say it. It says, after all, it was the pressure of our peers that gave us the support to try something we wouldn't otherwise have. I'll take that again. After all, Bisi, it was the pressure of your peers that gave you the support to try something you wouldn't otherwise have. If you look at this, really, you can take it in different contexts, right? So I'd just like to understand by this. Anybody wants to help?
Okay, in my own understanding, I think it means when anybody pressurizes you, like they give you like the courage you did not have to do something you wouldn't do on a normal day.
Fantastic, thank you.
It means when somebody forces you to do something you wouldn't like to do.
See, Hallmark Secondary School, that the pressure doesn't always have to be a bad way. It can be a helpful one too. Very good, thank you. So after all, it was the pressure of our peers that gave us the support to try something we wouldn't otherwise have. So that tells us, you and I, that pressure can be, or influence can be positive or negative. It can be positive because some person can help you to do things positively or negatively. Let me just look here. So I'm saying to myself, Bisi, how do I begin to know? How do I determine? How do I distinguish between a peer pressure that is positive or a peer influence that is positive or one that is negative? What are the signs? A lot of times people just can't wrap their heads around about it. So the first thing I'd like you to do is that when you talk about a positive peer pressure, this is getting you to do what is morally right. I'm sure we all know what is right. We have an idea of what is right. If I say here now, you see a phone, a device on the table, and you pick it, put it in your bag and walk away with it. You don't need a pastor to let you know what you've done is morally wrong. So positive peer pressure is anybody around you and I that helps us to get to do what is morally right. When you want to also evaluate positive peer pressure, it is doing what can make you a better person. Of course, me walking away with somebody else's device is not going to make me a better person. It's just made me a thief. I've taken something that is not mine. And so what happens is eventually it gets worse and I just graduate. And before you know it, such a person is probably carrying ammunition and becomes an armed robber. So how do I know if it is positive pressure? And this is very important, really. One, it helps you to do what is morally right. Two, doing whatever it is you do makes you a better person. Of course, anyone who is doing anything that is morally is doing the right thing. The third thing I like to say is that the outcome always has a positive impact. Me taking somebody else's device is definitely not a good impact. But like me assisting a Korede in her school work, me talking to a counselor and helping her to strengthen concerning a speaking engagement, like there's a debate in school and I'm the one talking to counselor and I'm like, counselor, you can do this. What happens? It always has a positive impact because the person gets better. Let me explain this again. This one about having a positive impact. I recall that when I was in secondary school, I didn't do well in math. I didn't like math. Unfortunately for me, the Ghanaian teacher, and interestingly, I still remember his name. I mean, like I'm talking about God knows how many decades ago, but I still remember this teacher's name vividly. He didn't make it easy for me. He just came to the conclusion that I could never pass mathematics. And so what happened? Of course, I failed it. I didn't do well. I failed it in my school cert examination. So I had to go and retake out of town. And I recall when I went back to retake, I said to, we would have this tutorial. And I said to this gentleman who was always training us, I said, I don't know math. My math teacher says I don't know math. And this guy looked at me. He says, Bisi, he said, you sound like a very intelligent person. He says, every time I have conversations with you, you sound so intelligent, you're able to articulate your thoughts very well. I said, really? He said, yes. He said, so why should math be a bother? I said, because of the figures. He said, no. He said, if you can do this, and you can do this, I think you can do well. And so this young guy, about my age really, would sit with me at the end of lessons, the school where I went to retake my exams, and he would help me and put me through. By the time I was done here, I came up with a C4 in mathematics. So what happened? There was a positive influence on me This individual gave me a positive, the outcome had a positive impact. Why? Because every time now I look at my school certificate result, I look at it and I'm like, I passed math, but the initial one, I didn't pass it. So when anything that has a positive impact upon your life is one that is a positive peer pressure. Then the second one is you will not be ashamed or afraid to discuss it publicly. I hope you understand that. So when we talk about positive peer pressure or positive peer influence, you will not be ashamed. Look at me now. I'm talking about this. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's so much pride in my heart that I was able to accomplish this. Why? Because this guy, and interestingly, he helped me to do this. So there's no shame. Anything anybody helps you to do, and you're not ashamed to share with people, you're not afraid to discuss it publicly like I'm doing now, then that means that person has a positive impact or influence upon you. On the flip side now, let's look at negative pressure. Getting you to do what is morally wrong. Getting you to do what is morally wrong. Risks are always involved. It leaves you feeling guilty, ashamed, uncomfortable, or fearful. Usually, these are covert activities. I mean, they're not things you do publicly. The outcome can only have consequences. I'll go back to it. Please, let's look at it together. How can I tell if the influence of Ronke in the life of a Jide is negative? Every time they know it is morally wrong, they stand and they know it is not something they should be doing at that time. There will always be risks involved. Why do I say that? What do I mean by that? They will always be looking over their shoulders to do that. When you're doing something that is wrong, you know there's a risk. If I get caught, what happens? I'm going to be disgraced. I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to face some consequence or the other. So you know that there are risks involved. A guy is saying to you, it doesn't matter, sleep with me, have sex with me. You know there's the risk of pregnancy involved. And so you say to him, what if I get pregnant? He says, don't worry, there's some pills I can give you. And you say, oh, what if? So when you talk about anything negative, anytime anybody is making suggestions to you, anytime anyone is saying anything to you, and because we're talking about being able to distinguish this, anything that is involved that is, and you know is morally wrong, is a negative influence this person has on you. It will always leave you feeling guilty, ashamed, and uncomfortable or fearful. It will always do that for you. Why? Because it strips you of any moral justification. It strips you of everything that makes you a good person. And of course, you know, like I'm a pastor by the devil will say to you, don't you understand? Don't you know what you've done? You can't even pray. How can you be praying? Desola, who says you pray? You have no right to pray. The other day behind the school building, the other time you did this, the other time you had an abortion. And so the devil just keeps coming to you. He says to you, Jide, don't you remember? You had a cigarette the other day. You should be ashamed of yourself. And so what happens? Anything that you do that is morally wrong, any relationship or association that you keep doing things that are morally wrong is negative influence. Anybody that makes you do things that risk are involved. What happened? Your father's car. Your father's car. Yes, take the key now, go and drive. And you too, you do that. Let me share an example of what happened to me when I was growing up. This risk involved. There was this guy. I mean, I think I must have been about 17 or thereabout. If I was, maybe 16. There was this one of my brother's friends that I knew liked me a lot. I knew he liked me a great deal. And you know, sometimes when you like someone too much, you do foolish things. And so he used to come to the house with his parents' car. And so he would come to the house. No, I think I must have been about 18. So he used to come to the house with his parents' car. He must have been about 20 because my brother is older than I am. And so this guy would bring his car and, you know, just like sit beside me, go for a spin. And I was very excited. And so one day I said to him, I remember his name very well. His name was Michael. Can you imagine? I don't remember the one that helped me with math, but I remember the one that did the math thing. And so this Michael said to me, I said to him one day, I said, Mike, I want to drive your car. He says, Bisi, you know how to drive? I said, yes, of course I know how to drive. I could see fear written all over this boy's face. He says, are you sure? He says, because my mother would kill me if anything happens to her. I said, what's wrong with you? Now see me now. It's not him. It is me now being a negative influence on him. I said, what's wrong with you? And you keep saying you like me. Give me the car key. Let me drive. And this boy gives me his mother's car key. It was a small SUV, very small. I think they call them Toyota Sidekick or something. And I got into the car. The only thing I knew about cars at that point was how to insert the key in the keyhole. and I put the key in the ignition and I turn the key. You know, it's not automatic. It's those cars that you do gear 1, gear 2. So apparently it wasn't on neutral, maybe it was on gear 1 or 2. So the minute I turned the key, put my foot, the car just jumped and almost scaled the fence. Jumped, went across the gutter, the drain, and was just, by the time we both came out, I was shaking already. And it's like, but you told me you know how to drive, but you told me you know how to drive. Can I say this? Anything you do that has risks involved is definitely, anyone that makes you do anything that has risk involved is some person that is putting negative pressure on you. And so look at me, the poor guy, because he liked me, I did that to him. I could have gotten both of us killed or maimed forever. The third thing is that it will make you feel guilty, ashamed, uncomfortable, and fearful. Of course, he was very ashamed of himself. There was a dent on the car. He felt guilty. He was fearful. He didn't know how he was going to face his parents. I was saying to myself, what's going to happen? If my mother hears, she's going to kill me. My parents are going to have my head. Anything that you do, any relationship, any association that leaves you feeling guilty, leaves you feeling ashamed of yourself, leaves you feeling uncomfortable and you're fearful. You know, sometimes you do some things, even though people are not there, they didn't see you. But the minute you walk away from there, most times you walk away from there, it's like the whole world knows what you have done. It's like everybody has seen your nakedness. So that cigarette you smoked at the back of the classroom block, you're thinking everybody knows. You're taking meat, you're putting things in your mouth, and you're just trying to make it. The only thing that makes you feeling that way is not a good thing. I said, finally here, the outcome of certain things, the outcome of such would have damning consequences. It would always, or it can have damning consequences. So I ask you now, I'm talking negative peer pressure, I'm talking about the consequences that could be terrible. What if we had both crashed and died? I wouldn't be here today having this conversation with you. I wouldn't have had an opportunity to give my heart to Christ because at that point I wasn't even born again. I didn't even know what being born again was all about. So anything that is a huge risk to you, negative peer pressure would always have damning consequences that could bring ruin or some sort of harm or hurt to you or the people involved. I hope we're clear. So we have an understanding now. When we're talking peer pressure, there's the positive one, there's the negative one. And so if you look at these points that I've given us, these are checklists that anytime anybody wants you to do something or you're around people and there's certain things happening, you need to begin to ask yourself, is this morally right? Am I doing it? Is it going to make me a better person? Is the outcome going to have a positive impact? Would I be ashamed for doing this? Would I be afraid to discuss this publicly? If it doesn't check this list, then definitely it is negative peer pressure. Are we good with that? Can I go on? Am I communicating? Do you understand what we're talking about here? Thank you very much. And so now let me focus on negative peer pressure and peer influence. Can I say this to us? So if this will make you feel any better. Everybody goes through pressure one time or the other of one's life. It has nothing to do with how talking you are. It has nothing to do with gender. Every person on earth at every point in time, you will go through these situations. There will be a point in time where somebody will say to you something that has to do with you making or taking a decision. We all are faced with that at every point in time in our lives, everybody. And can I also say this, that peer pressure, peer influence, negative now or positive, it has nothing whatsoever to do with age. Even adults are swayed by this. Let me give an example. A mother who decides to take the children to a school that she knows that they cannot afford the fees for any reason, but just because she wants to be like the Joneses, is one who has been negatively influenced. Well, the school is a good deal, it's a good one, but the point is they can just not afford it at that time. So you will find a lot of adults also. You see many people who want to slim down. Why do they want to do this? Because they're watching somebody on social media who is looking thin. Oh, come on. So it's not age dependent or age. It doesn't narrow down to particular age groups only. Everybody and anybody faces this at every point in time. So I ask myself, why do people go through peer pressure? Why do people succumb? Why do people yield to peer pressure influence? The first thing I like to say here is meanness and bullying. Meanness and bullying. When one is bullied, when people are mean to a person, a lot of times it turns that person also into a monster. And before you know it, one way or the other, it rubs up on you and you also become like them. Huh? When people bully or they are mean to individuals, because you want the bullying and the meanness to stop, what happens? You just don't want to go on that way. So meanness and bullying is one way that people exert peer pressure, negative peer pressure. Another way is making people skip classes. Oh, I did a lot of that when I was in school. So it's not a wonder that I failed most of my courses then. You know, the times I look back now and I wonder that if it wasn't for grace, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't go to school as much as I did. It was just God's mercy that sought me out. You're skipping classes. If there's any person who keeps making you mean to people, let me go back to the meanness. Let me give another example. You know, there are times some girl in your class or somebody in your office hasn't exactly done anything bad to you, anything to warrant you being mean. But because your friends are mean to such a person, so what happens? You also are mean to the person. And so Sarah hasn't done anything to warrant a dishonor to be mean to her. But just because all your other friends are mean to Sarah, what happens? You also are mean to Sarah. People are commenting and then making remarks about her or the fact that her shoes are not looking nice. You begin to do the same with them. That means that you are doing this negative peer pressure. When people make you skip classes, make you skip church. I heard that even youths and teenagers, that the parents drop them off in front of the church and then the parents go back to the adult class, and these youth and teenagers just move out of church and go somewhere else because they know, they have an idea of what time service is going to end, and they now come back to church. Any friend that makes you do things like this is exacting your succumbing to negative peer pressure. Anyone who makes you skip classes, makes you skip church. Also, what about substance abuse? Can I say this? I counsel a lot of youths, and I've come to 65% of these youths or any person who went into substance abuse was because of negative peer pressure or influence. It was because of this. So peer pressure, if you find yourself in substance abuse, these are also things that bring about that. Promiscuity, lying, stealing, like I said, moral values, anything that just strips you of all moral values, the upbringing, if you have, or even if you don't have, that which you know is right and that which is wrong. These are signs that one is being, either you are the one who is influencing people negatively or you're being influenced negatively. So why do we succumb? Why do people succumb to negative peer pressure? Why do people succumb to negative peer influence? The first one I like to say is curiosity and being experimental. And I'd like to explain what I mean here. Can I say this? It's not everybody that wanted to go into substance abuse and get hooked on coke. There's some people, it's out of curiosity. They see people that are close to them take it, and they're just like, what is this thing? Let me just try and see how it is. And then before you know it, such a person is hooked. For some people, it's like, you jumped, you left school. Are you serious? You left campus at what time of the night? 11 a.m. Where did you go to a party? What does it feel? Aren't you afraid? And they go, there's nothing to be afraid of. And out of curiosity, not because the person is necessarily bad, the person also begins to do that. So this happens. Please be careful the depth and the length and how deep your curiosity is, how far your curiosity will go. You know, they say curiosity kills the cat. Please be careful that our curiosity will not kill us. So people succumb to negative peer pressure out of curiosity, out of being experimental. I've seen children who said they got hooked on nicotine, cigarette. Why? Because the father or the mother left the butt of cigarettes down, left it on the floor, and the child picks it up and it's just like, what does it even taste like? Why is daddy always smoking this? So we have to be mindful, we have to be careful. Curiosity, be careful. Don't let people say, what did you do? I hear you boiled noodles with what? With Indian hemp, you soaked it. What does it taste like? Is it nice? Is it? Run away. The Bible says, abstain from all appearances of evil. Anything that is just right, please don't let your curiosity get you into trouble. Another reason I found out that people succumb to negative peer pressure is the quest for validation. And this is born out of lack of understanding of your worth of value. And this happened to me a lot. When I was in my secondary school, there was this group of girls that were the happening girls. I went to Methodist Girls High School in the 70s. And these girls were just the ones you needed to be friends with for you to be for you to have a name. In secondary school, you can imagine as teenagers. And I so much wanted to be a part of these people. I mean, it was just so like, no, I have to be part of them. They must see, and so because they saw the desperation in me. You see, when your quest for validation, wanting to belong to a group is so intense, the people on the other side see it. So what happens? You become a slave to them. Guess what these girls would make me do? These girls at that time as a teenager would make me go and steal from my mother, steal money from my mom, and then buy things for them in school. Did they tell me to go and steal? No. But most times they go, during lunch, they're going, you want to come with us? You can't come with us, so if you can't buy meat pie for me from the tuck shop. You want to come with us? Okay, so here's your turn, you have to buy drinks. Of course, I didn't have that kind of money. So what happened? I resorted to taking that which was not mine. Why? Because I was so desperate to be validated by them. I so wanted to belong to them. I want to be part of their groups. Can I say this to you? You have to be careful how much you hunger or thirst for validation. And most times this happens because we have a lack of understanding of our true worth and value. We don't understand who we really are. I didn't know who I was. I never for the life of me thought that I'd even get to this stage of my life. I just felt like everything started and revolved around these girls, and I just had to be. And so what has happened? You'll find a lot of girls who are dating guys, sleeping with them. Why? Because the guy says, that's the only way you can prove that you care about me. Or some person is doing stuff. So you have to be careful. Your quest for validation. Why are you so desperate to belong to this particular group? Also, the guys say, for you to hang around us, so for you to hang out with us, you have to swear to an oath of some qualities, whatever. And because you're just so desperate, because you don't understand who you are, I didn't understand my worth. I thought that my life began and ended with these girls. And I can't even remember the names of some of them. So you can imagine how foolish that was. There was my mom working very hard and doing everything to make life easy for me. And the same woman, I'm taking money from her to buy drinks and buy snacks for girls who didn't give a hoot about me. Please, let's be careful here. Don't let people see through your desperation to be validated by them. The third thing here is inability, timidity and inability to say no. If you can see personal things with you, there's nothing for me to be ashamed of. I'm sharing this with you so that you would understand that these things are real and we have to be careful. So timidity and inability to say no, how does that make us succumb to negative peer pressure? You see, the minute people know that you are timid, they tend to bully you. And they will do that over and over again for as long as you allow them. When I was in secondary school, I have so many stories about my life. When I was in secondary school, there was this particular girl that was used to be very mean to me for no reason. But I think I understand better. There must have been something about my life that she liked, and she wasn't that way. And the only way she could kill the spirit in me was to make me feel worthless. And so this girl would always be me. Go to a tennis court, where there maybe teachers are not there. She walks up to me. She wasn't much bigger than me. We're about the same thing. But her mouth was so sharp, and she those kind of people that cut you down to size. And so this girl will come up to me, and people are talking, and she goes, "Don't keep quiet. We're talking. You're talking. Who are you?" My father pays my fees. Her father pays her fees, but that was how bad it was. It got to the point that I was always afraid to be anywhere near her. So like I'm walking down the corridor, I see her walking towards me. The next thing is I make a turn and I'm running away. And so one day, and this went on for a long time, it was so depressing. My heart was always so heavy. I was always fearful. And so one day, one of my friends, positive influence now, she comes to me, she says, "Bisi, this has to stop. Nyoju has to stop harassing you." I said, "Are you going to help me talk to her?" She said, "No, you are going to be the one who's going to, who will talk to Nyoju and tell Nyoju to stop." I said, I can tell her to stop. And my friend said to me, "Has she ever raised her hand to hit you?" I said, "No." She said, "Why do you think so?" I said, "Well, maybe because she'll get in trouble with the principal." She said, "Beyond that, she can't do it." She said, "So she knows that you're afraid of the tongue lashing and that." So my friend said to me, during break, we're going on the tennis court. And if for any reason she comes at you, you'll tell her to stop. I said, "I'll tell her to stop." She said, "Yes, and you will say it firmly." I said, "Show me how to say it firmly." And she did. She had this expression on her face, and I was shivering where I was. And so we got to the tennis court as usual. Comes up touching, because she said she wasn't going to do it for me. I had to be the one to deliver myself this time. And so, it was like something just rose within me. And I found myself saying to Nyoju, "Will you stop? Nyoju, will you stop doing that?" Will you stop talking to me that way? And she didn't even know what to say. By the time I said that, what do you think I did? Do you think I stayed there? No. Very quickly, I walked away briskly from the tennis court before I legs were gently under me. Your timidity and inability to say no, people can see through it. Bullies can see through it. People will see through it. And when this happens, you make yourself easy target for individuals who will want to put pressure on you. Ignorance and being naive. Kai, this is terrible. I've seen people who got into coke addiction because they didn't know it was coke. I've read stories of people who got kidnapped just because they didn't have an idea it was possible for this to happen. Please, ignorance is death. Ignorance is death. Ignorance is death. Have an understanding of what is happening. I'm still going to come to how we're going to be able to deal with this. So don't be ignorant. Don't act foolishly. Don't let one guy say to you, okay, we're going. Do you mind? I'm just going to stop over at my friend's place. I want to do something from there, and you say it's fine. You sit in the car, and the next minute your friend says, "Oh, would you like to come in for a minute? I'd like to," and then you follow him. You set yourself up for probably for a rape or something. Please, let's be careful. Don't be ignorant in any way. The last one is lack of direction of personal purpose. Many people who have no direction of where they're going in life would always be susceptible to negative peer pressure. Let me give you an illustration. And so Koinsola, Korede, and Bisi wake up in the morning. Koinsola says, today I'm going to study. I'm going to read up and finish up all my assignments, my physics lesson. Or maybe I have a backlog of work from the office that I want to do. That's Korede speaking now. That's Koinsola speaking. That's what I'm going to do today. Today is Saturday, no partying, nothing. All I'm going to do today is just catch up on office work, return mails, and respond to mails. Bisi wakes up, and all Bisi wants to do is go to Titi's house. That's what she determined to do on Saturday. Korede herself wakes up, and all she wants to do is help maybe her mom with some house chores. And so all three wake up with different agenda for the day. Koinsola, like I said, her own agenda is to catch up on all the emails, the backlog of work. Bisi, what she wants to do is what? Go and visit some person. Korede, all she wants to do for that Saturday is to assist her mom. I'm talking about lack of direction or personal purpose makes us succumb to negative peer pressure. And so my agenda is to visit, and that's all I want to do. And so I go to Koinsola's house. I meet her sitting by her desktop or her laptop, and she's working, busy, typing away. And I go, Koinsola, what's up? What's happening today? And she goes, I have a backlog of work. There's so many meals I have to do. There's so many. And I go, why don't we just go and visit Ronke? And Koinsola goes, but this is what I want to do, honestly. And after a while, Bisi speaks, persuades her, and Koinsola says, okay, let's just go for 1 hour, just for 2 hours. And she sets her work aside. Then off they go to Korede's house, who had determined that what she was going to do that day is to assist her mom and help with house chores. And they both get to Korede's house, and they say to Korede, what's happening to you? Let's go and visit. And Korede goes, my mom said to do this. And Bisi goes, even Koinsola had office work to do. It's not going to be a long time, let's go. And so all three of them go off to visit Roke. Now, can I ask you a question? Of the three of them, which one of them fulfilled her personal purpose for that Saturday? Bisi. Why do you say so? Because all Bisi decided, thank you very much, that's the right answer. All Bisi wanted to do that Saturday was to go. Okay, so thank you very much for that answer. That's the right one. So Bisi was the only one who fulfilled personal purpose. Can I say something to us? This is what happens all the time. Every time we succumb to negative peer pressure, we have helped to fulfill somebody else's personal purpose. When we have sex with a boy that we shouldn't be doing such things with, his own purpose was, his agenda was to sleep with this girl and move on with his life. And when we succumb to that, because we lack direction of what our own personal life purpose is. We do that. When we do things that contradict what we have set out or the things we should be doing with our lives, that's what happens to us. So I said, why do people succumb? Because of curiosity, being experimental. One can have sex with a boy. Oh, really? I could try that. It doesn't really matter. Nothing will happen now. Let me just see. It's just once. And then what happens? You try it once and you get into trouble. Quest for validation, like I said, because I lack an understanding of my worth and value. That's what I did with those friends of mine. Timidity and inability to say no will make people keep harassing you. And at the end of the day, you would always succumb to what they want. If they're bullies in the bus, they're bullies around, they're bullies even in the office places, they're bullies in church. There are people in positions in churches that are bullies as well. So timidity and inability to say no, what happens? Sometimes some people will just even keep heaping work upon you. Why? Just because you can't say no. Ignorance and being naive also, lack of direction and personal purpose. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, so let's look at this picture here. So it says, oh, can you take it to the next slide, please? The next slide, please.
Sorry, ma, did you say next slide?
Yes. Okay.
Are we good?
Yes, next slide. This one, yes, fantastic. Yes, please. Okay. So there's this cartoon here that describes about earlier, one of the points I've talked about. And so these are girls in school. You can see from there. He goes, "Hi, Deborah, do you fancy it won't kill you?" And she goes, "No, but my mom would if she found out." No, I'm sorry. And then she goes, "Oh, I think I lost something there." And she goes, "Hey, proper little mommy's girl, aren't you?" She says, "You better do as I say if you want to be with us." So what happened? There was bullying here. There was coercion. It says it would kill you. She says, "Yes, but my mom would if she found out." So the cigarette, the puff of the cigarette might not kill me, but my mother finding out will definitely kill me. That's what she said here. And that's just the truth. And she now says, "Look at you, proper mommy's girl." You know, people will try to mock you, to ridicule you, to just make you feel small. So at the end of the day, you want to prove a point to them and do what they do. You succumb. So there's coercion, there's intimidation, there's mockery also. So it says, "You better do as I say if you want to be with us." Of course, like me, foolishly, wanting to be validated, wanting to belong, so much so. And so what happens? You begin to do what they do. You're skipping classes because your friends are doing so. You're sleeping with guys, people have boyfriends. You don't, on a good day, you wouldn't have done that, but because you want to belong, you're a guy, you're tripping, you're beginning to hang around girls, you're smoking and you're just doing stuff. You're taking things that aren't yours. Why? Because everybody around you is doing the same and you want to belong. So this girl succumbed to the negative peer pressure, negative influence because of all the methods that this individual used to coerce her. I like that. Yes, it takes determination. So it brings me to what you're talking about here. So how do I handle peer pressure? Please, this is in no way exhaustive. I'll just try to walk through here because of the time that we're working with. The first thing I like to say to everybody listening here, and this is one thing that helped me, is that you understand who you are and why whoever you are made you. And here I'm talking about God. You need to understand who you are and why God made you. You know, I like Revelation chapter 4, verse 11. I pray over it for my life and also for the lives of the children God has given it to me. It says, "For God is worthy to receive all glory, for he has created all things for his pleasure." So if my life has been created for God's pleasure, why am I messing my life up doing drugs? If I have been created for God's pleasure, why am I letting some guy or some girl out there make me look like a fool? If I've been created to give God pleasure, why am I so desperate to give man, my mates, my peers pleasure to the point that I offend the God who made me? Please, it's important that you have an understanding of who you are. So I, Olabisi, I have been created to give God pleasure. I am a child of God. He made me to give him pleasure. And so when I do anything else that contradicts that, when man or any person, my friends, my other people are the ones that are now more desirous of to give pleasure, what happens? It makes God small in my eyes. That means I have reduced God to nothing. And I have done what? I've magnified these other people to the point that they take the place of God. So how do you handle this? I have to keep saying to myself, is it morally wrong? Is it something that can get me into trouble? Does it have damning consequences? Who am I? I'm a child of God. Why have I been made to give God pleasure? If I do this, when you say you're giving somebody pleasure, that means the person is glad with you. God is not going to be glad with you. Seeing you under a man, a married man, you're hanging around somebody else's husband. God is not going to be glad with you. Seeing that you're doing stuff, you're manipulating figures. God is not going to be happy with us. So God is not going to be glad with us when we mess up our bodies. The Bible says our bodies are the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Holy Ghost. So when we do things like this, we do not give God pleasure. If that keeps resonating in your mind, that you know who you are, of course, you understand whose you are and why he made you, it is very unlikely for you to yield to any negative peer influence or peer pressure. I hope we understand that. The second thing is you need to critique your reasons for choice of friends, and you need to choose your friends wisely. Many of us get into trouble because of the kind of friends we have. I look back at my life and I look back at a lot of lives also, and I see that most times people just pick friends for no reason that can be justified. So you need to sit back. I remember when my daughter was a teenager, when they were growing up, and I'm talking to her, she goes, can you call this person is my friend? I always pause and I go, all right, she's your friend? And she goes, yes. And I go, please, what makes her your friend? And she goes, Mommy, you started again. And she's my friend. I'll say, no, stop using the word loosely. You see, we get into trouble because we use, even as adults, we use the word loosely. I've learned that over the years. So I'm careful. It's very rare for me to call somebody my friend. Oh, yes, I know. Because a friend is some person you want to go out of your way to please. A friend is somebody you want to go out of your way to do. So when you're saying somebody is your friend, you have to be careful that you are both on the same page. The Bible says, can two walk together except they be agreed? The Message translation says in that Amos 3:3, it says, can two walk together except they're going the same way? So if Titi is not going the same way I'm going, that is defined by the God that I know. Having an understanding of her purpose in life and why God has made her, it is very unlikely that we can walk together. I mean, can somebody be going to the United Kingdom, be going to London, and then enter the same plane with somebody who is probably going to some other place, really? And then it's not like there's a stopover or whatever. So why are people your friend? You need to begin to ask yourself. Many people choose friends for wrong reasons, even as adults. They're looking at them, status, and they're looking at him. What kind of car does he drive? What kind of clothes do they wear? When you pick friends for wrong reasons, you would always get into trouble. So you need to ask yourself, are we going the same way? Our purpose in life, are they defined? Are they aligned? Are we pursuing the same thing? Do you understand what I'm saying here? So I think after this now, you need to critique and sit down. Begin to write the names of those people you call friend. Bisi, you write the name. Ronke, you write the name. Tola, John, Jide, Nkechi, just write the name. Okay, so you have to seek to be an influence. So when you see people doing something wrong, why don't you begin to speak up? You see the girls in your school, the girls in your class are being mean to somebody. Why don't you speak up? You see somebody going the wrong way. You see somebody at work being bullied. So just be a light, be a positive influence. The more you're a positive influence, the more difficult it will be for you to do something wrong. Why? Because the minute you try to do something that is morally wrong, people will look at you and say, Bisi, even you. So because you have become a light, you've become an epistle, someone that people can read. Then, okay, thank you very much. Then also be comfortable with yourself. Be happy with who people are and your choices and your value. Be comfortable with you. Be happy with you. Be happy with who you are and be happy with your choices and your values. Then also know what is right. Be informed. Please let me talk on that. Be comfortable with you. Yes, I think I already spoke on self-esteem, so I won't go to that. Know what is right. Be informed. Please read papers. Listen to the news. Know what is happening around. Don't just dig your head in the Bible only. Please know what is happening. Be well informed about happenings. Be well informed so that you are on your guard. You're not careless. Be well informed about the fact that when you go for a function and a guy or you go on an outing and your drink is open before it gets to your table, you should not be taking that drink. Why? Because it could have been drunk. There could be something in it. Be well informed. Don't leave your food around people and you leave your food and you go to the restroom and come back. You don't know what could have been put there. I'm not talking about fear. I'm talking about you being informed about what is happening. When this happens, it's very unlikely that you will fall into the hands of negative peer pressure. Don't be afraid to be laughed at. Don't be afraid to be mocked. I think sometimes when people laugh at us or make fun of us, it makes us kind of tip towards negative If there's one thing I do a lot, like someone is talking, I would have first made fun of myself. So it doesn't matter what you're saying again. It doesn't have as much impact. It doesn't rub off on me as badly as it would have. Don't be afraid to be laughed at. When people laugh at you, laugh with them. Do you understand? Just they say, hey, this is what I can imagine. Can you imagine what I did to myself? I mean, something happened to me 2 days ago. Today's Friday. I was talking to a friend of mine. I sent her a message. I said, you won't believe what I did. Can you imagine I did this? I said, I'm laughing at myself. And she goes, wow, Bisi, how could you have done that? And she was laughing as well. It was fun because I had laughed at myself. So when people laugh at you, please don't be uptight about life. Learn to laugh at your mistakes yourself. So by the time people are even talking about it, you have seen it yourself and you have dealt with it. Please confide in someone if people are putting you under pressure. Like there's that uncle who wants to do stuff with you. Like there's somebody in your office who is bullying you, your boss at work is bullying you. Like there are people who are just coming at you, wanting you to do things that are terrible. Please confide in someone. Also, talk to the person who is pressuring you. Tell that person that will not let them know how they make you feel. And tell the person. I said to that, my friend, will you stop being bullying me? Will you please stop this? Sometimes when they see the boldness in you, it makes them step back and they're like, okay, this is one is not easily, it cannot be easily intimidated. Please don't be afraid to say no. I repeat, don't be afraid to say no. There's nothing wrong in saying no. Don't be afraid to be different. To say no and don't be afraid to be different. You know, I say to people, I said, it doesn't really matter to me much what people, I know what I am. I'm focused and I know because I have an understanding of my purpose in life. I have a clear direction. The roadmap is there. God has shown me what my life is about. And so it doesn't matter how many people are making fun of me. It doesn't matter what people are saying. It's not going to put me under pressure to do what they want me to do. So I'm not afraid to say no to people. I'm not afraid in any way. Finally, please pray, pray, and pray. There's nothing prayers cannot do. I recall when my daughter was a lot younger, she used to have issues. People would harass her, bully her in school and whatever. And, you know, it got to a point I'd done everything. And I said to her, you know what, Oren, why don't you just pray that God Almighty will just help you with these people? Do you know she prayed? It got to a point that there were some of them that were taken away from her class at that point. You know, things just happen. The dynamics just change. So please, are you being put under pressure? Are you timid? Are you afraid? Are you fearful? Are there things around you that just makes you wonder what your life is all about? Please pray, pray, and pray. It says here, I'm not to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine. So please, let that be at the back of our mind. The only person who expects anything from us and who we have to be sure that we do not disappoint is God, the one who made us and created us for his pleasure. Don't let people put you under pressure. Don't let people make you do things you shouldn't do. Be careful how you go through life, because at the end of the day, there are very terrible consequences